Well, hey, everybody. You might know me, Andrew Larson, from Practically Pastoring or the Morning After Ministry Show, but this is a different kind of podcast, one that we had talked about doing for a while and needed kind of the right opportunity. So I'm sitting next to my right opportunity, Riley Lester. We are recording this in June of 2025, and who knows if or when it will air. But this is a new kind of podcast where we're going to have 8 or 9 conversations, maybe a few interviews with other people along the way. But we are talking through what it's like to get a job in ministry. So welcome to Get a Job with Andrew and Riley.
You are listening to Get a Job, presented by Practically Pastoring, a podcast about calling, clarity, and the awkward in-between.
So, Riley, let's talk for a few minutes to let everybody know where you've been, where you're at. But can you walk us through the current season that you are in at your church and what it looked like to get to this season?
Yeah. So at a church not to be named, a church I do love dearly. And let me just preface with that. I do love my church dearly. This church has been an influence in my life for the past 15 years. So I moved down here from a student ministry role to become a campus pastor down here in Florida, and took in a church that was hurting. Previous campus pastor, founding campus pastor, actually had left on not so good terms, and decided to plant a church 10 minutes away. And I walked into that situation as the guy after the guy, and came in with kind of the first step into this kind of senior leadership role, if you will. And quite frankly, came in guns a-blazing and wanting to...
That's an understatement.
Probably an understatement, but wanted to come in and change Pinellas County, change North Pinellas County, South Pasco for Jesus very quickly. And through that, just learned some things. And long story short, in my 2.5 years of being campus pastor there, began to see some writing on the wall about some just chemistry fits. We reorganized our leadership structure and different things, and had some warning signs I probably should have listened to earlier on in the process of, hey, things may not turn out how I want them to turn out. And because pride's a real thing, and I didn't listen to those warning signs and decided, you know what, I'm going to just prove them wrong and be the pastor that they don't think I can be. And through some more time, it was brought to my attention, hey, we just think that you would be better fit in a different position at the church. Mm-hmm. And
so not the position that you feel called to, or that you left a thriving ministry for.
Correct. Yes. I left a very good ministry in Georgia with a very well-known and respected senior pastor who I dearly loved. And my wife was a elementary school teacher, high school cheer coach. We were looking at buying a house before I moved back down here to Florida. And so left everything that we were building to come down here for what we thought was this opportunity. And that quickly changed.
And so, for the record, for anyone listening, whenever this is going out, maybe this is just a therapy session at this point, you're not being fired.
Correct.
There's no hey, there's a character issue. There's no, we don't want you. You're not being fired, but you are no longer going to be in your role long term, and that's awkward.
Yeah, correct. It was initially it was hey, we think you are wearing, we want you in the jersey, as they would use. Hey, we want you on the team. We just think you'd be a better position on the team. Mm-hmm. And or hey, we want you on the bus, but we think there's a better seat for you on the bus. And so they wanted to kind of move me to a different position and different things. But then when it came to, hey, you know what, it's time to make this decision. Full disclosure, I did not handle it well. The first few days were not good. I opened my mouth to some people I shouldn't have, and have gone back and repented and asked for forgiveness to those people. But because of that, it was hey, that other leadership position we are going to kind of put you in, it's kind of off the table now. and now we're going to put you in this role and figure things out. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
So at what point did you kind of take the hard look in the mirror and be like, all right, this isn't sustainable? You've got 2 kids. By the time this airs, a 3rd child will be born.
It was, I moved down here with my family. At that point, we had 1 kid. Our daughter was due and a few months after we moved here. So it was my son's 2nd birthday. It was our first Sunday down here in Florida. And so 1 kid, 1 on the way. Now we have 2 kids, a 3rd on the way. And my wife teaches at the school that our church runs. And for me, it was that moment of the things I was doing in my role. I was preaching almost every week. I was doing things and realizing how much I enjoyed that, enjoyed the leadership, and even doing some things that the church helped me with some leadership coaching through this process, and realizing the way I am wired, as one person described, as a rancher, someone who can do a little bit of everything, but does best overseeing, casting vision, and just knowing in the role that I'm in now is a role where I couldn't flesh out the gifts and the abilities that God's given me, and quite frankly, it'll be miserable. I don't do nothing well, and I don't do anything well.
But you don't. You have never been someone who sits still.
Correct.
I've known Riley since he was in middle school. I was the kind of pseudo intern, youth volunteer, and then became the middle school pastor at a church that Riley was at when he was 13 12 when you moved.
When this episode airs, it's actually the day we're recording. It's my 34th birthday, so happy birthday to me.
Super old.
My birthday gift to me is figuring out if I'm gonna have a job. But yeah, so Andrew and I go back. Gosh, that would be 21 years.
Half of my life and the majority of your life.
Yeah.
So it's been a while that we've been hanging out. So in a way, your church knows that you're looking. It's not like sit here and be still, but it's we want to take care of you. We want to take care of your family. We just might not have the role for you that you want here. So like with their blessing, you are now interviewing, sending applications. I don't know if you're recording podcast with their blessing, but it's not a secret that you are not going to be in your current role long term.
Correct. I think it's never been publicly stated that, hey, I am looking for things to the team at whole. Now, senior leadership knows. In fact, for me, it was more of a, hey, we think you should aggressively begin to seek new opportunities. And I took that as a, hey, let's begin to aggressively seek new opportunities. And so, but other people internally and different levels of ministry at the church, they just kind of assume, like when it gets brought up, I'm helping there's a student ministry intern or apprentice at the church who is ending his apprenticeship in August, and he's trying to find a job. So I'm actually helping him through the process while I myself am walking through the process. And his response was, well, aren't you not being here long term? So it's kind of assumed that, hey, he doesn't want to do this role, and so he's going to try to find something.
So you've been released without being released. So there's no public, hey, we love this guy, we're sending him out. But quietly it's hey, go find a better fit, go find that niche for you and yours.
Yeah, it's been, hey, looking at your giftings, we just don't think there's a role for you right now to, fit those giftings. And understandably so. I get it. I've come to that full conclusion. And honestly, through this process, I've maybe realized that I am better fit for a different type of role in the future.
Let's be real. There's no such thing as a campus pastor. You can't say that. I can say that. It's and being that if you are watching this and you're offended by that, congratulations, you're at one of the 2% of churches in the world that has this problem. So yeah, that it's not a normal role. It's not a role that I think anyone finds themselves in long term. I've known lots of people who have served as campus pastors. In fact, on Practically Pastoring, 2 of the 5 of us were campus pastors when we started Practically Pastoring, and now neither of them are campus pastors. So it is a unique role with a lot of turnover.
Yeah, and like I said, in my ministry, and we'll get into this more, I'm sure, background is I have been, you could say, blessed or cursed, who knows, by seeing ministry at a high level at some very good churches. And so for me, when I stepped into this role, to me, in my bubble of ministry, campus pastors are a thing. And so navigating, even when I came in, what this role looked like. Because when I came in, it was pitched as a, hey, this is where we want to go, and just not as we didn't get that direction going as fast as I probably thought it was going to happen. And again, that's one of the things that also came back to kind of just bite me and cause some problems.
So how do you stay faithful in the role and in the place that you are in when there is no exit date, there is no exit strategy, the exit isn't even official, and so yet you're serving in the church that you're at, and you're on the team, but it's not long term. How do you do that with a smile on your face?
Yeah.
How do you do that kind of without feeling like you're a bit of a hypocrite?
Yeah, there's some people say, hey, fake it till you make it. You can't do that in ministry.
No.
You'll be miserable. And quite frankly, I would rather work a secular job than do that. And so for me, it was reminding myself, and I had the conversation with my wife through this whole process, was, hey, so we went from our campus that we were leading to now back to the quote-unquote main campus, if you will.
The mothership.
Yes, the words I don't use. But
I'm allowed to say those things. It's fine.
And so going back to this main campus and having to remind myself, and having with my wife as well, saying, hey, the people at this campus didn't do this to us. And so we can't cause our hurt to affect their walk with Christ. And so for me, it was a reminder of every time I walk into the room, I walk into the church doors going, hey, you know what? They didn't do this. And quite frankly, like at the end of the day, we both believe, in all of us, I'm sure watching this, you believe in this, the sovereignty of God, that this is God's will. Now, does God's will suck sometimes for our lives? I wouldn't say suck,
I wouldn't.
but let's retract that. I would say, is it difficult at times?
Yes.
The answer is yes. But hard is not bad. Hard is just hard. And so for me, it's reminding myself, hey, this is a hard season, not a bad season.
Yeah.
And so walking, going, hey, there are people that God has sovereignly placed at this campus, and He's put me at this campus that need me to be at my best. And so it's doing that. And then honestly, for me, it's just doing the task at hand. Hey, you want me to make first-time guest phone calls? I'm going to do my best making first-time guest phone calls. Hey, you want me to help collect the offering and walk the offering after service to the safe with security? Well, I'm going to be the best at that. And I'm going to do that with a smile on my face. So when people look at me, they're going to go, you know what? Like, there's something about him.
He is taking it seriously.
And you get the comments, like there was one of my first few weeks at the campus, back at the main campus, it was someone goes, hey, are you a pastor here? And I was like, actually I am. Like, yeah, you have that look about you. And it was kind of that moment of like, hey, you know what? Like, hey, I still have value.
Like,
and
I'm not wearing the headset mic, and yet I am still a pastor.
Yeah. And so it was my first Sunday was Easter Sunday back at the main campus. And that was weird. Just not, going from preaching 4 services to not preaching at all. And even our senior pastor going, Riley, I know it's hard. I know you want to preach today. And but for me, it's reminding myself again, just be faithful to the Lord, love on His people that are called to be, and let Him figure it out.
So was there a temptation to just quit right away? Like when the decision's coming down, hey, we don't think this is the role that you've left an existing established life for, that we put you in, we don't think you're right for this role. Was there a temptation to be like, all right, well, I'm going to go drive Uber for the next 6 months and see you later?
Not to drive Uber. The temptation was, hey, I'm going to plant a church. No, just kidding. Excuse me. But that was never a thought for me, because someone even, it was pitched to me, hey, maybe you'd be better off in Christian education. Like, hey, maybe, you don't have to deal with people as much and different things like that. And I just know, and Andrew can attest to this, is I tried different avenues of ministry early on. I tried camp ministry. I tried Christian college
coaching at a Christian college. Yeah,
I tried all these different things, and for me, it was like, no, I'm wired for the local church, and I know my calling. And there are many men. I got ordained into the local church. There's many men in my life that would say, no, this is your calling, and I never once have wavered from that. Even when people said, hey, we think you might be better off in this avenue, I looked at them and said, you cannot tell me what God's called me to do.
You haven't looked at the questions that I have like scripted out to ask you, but my next question is, has this shaken or clarified your calling?
Oh, it's clarified 100%. And honestly, I would say it's clarified even more of what I thought I knew. Because I thought, you know what, like I'm in this role, this is good, but now I'm kind of introspectively, I've had more time on my hand, which is nice, to read more, to, go through this executive coaching and look at things and, praise the Lord for AI and taking all these different leadership assessments I've done and put them into ChatGPT and said, hey, can you take this and create a 1-page leadership document, a 1-page pastoral document, a 1-page have a better husband and father document? And really through this, I've seen how God's wired me, and it's clarified more of, no, I'm called to a local church, and I'm called in this avenue in terms of even leadership. Now, I know that sounds prideful, like, oh, I'm called to be a leader in the church. But I truly believe that's how God's wired me.
Yeah, and sometimes to be in that seat, you have to go through the suck, if you will, to know exactly where it is that you're supposed to be. So I know in the seasons of vocational change, and we've got friends in ministry who have popped up for 5 or 6 years in ministry, and then they're selling insurance or whatever. I always feel like insurance salesmen get dumped on, but they're in another role, and they're faithful, and they're connected to a church, but they're no longer in vocational ministry. And every time I have been in a season of change, I have felt more called to the church than even when I was serving 2 or 3 months right before. So I get that. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, no, this has clarified who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and Andrew can attest to this. We've had conversations of, as I began this process, and we'll get into this later, about, looking at jobs and where is God calling me, different stuff. I've realized that now, again, this is, I'm 34 years old. I'm not, my master's degree will be done in 1 month. Praise the Lord. But it's this idea of going, like, looking before this season of ministry, I never would have thought, senior pastor is where I want to be. But now looking back and going through this process, I'm going, like, I think that might be who I'm supposed to be.
Well, I know 8+ years ago now for me, ironically, I was 34, and coming out of a season of successful student ministry, and I had moved into an associate role because of the health of the senior pastor at the church, and things were changing. And I had spent the first 15 years of my vocational ministry in big affluent churches, and kind of assumed that was the next step. Like, go be the number 2 at a, 2,000 or 3,000 person church or whatever it was. And the idea of being the senior pastor at a church of, I think, at the time when they hired me, I think there were 37 regular attendees on Sunday mornings. And that was nowhere on my radar to kind of come to and stabilize and then grow a local neighborhood church. And through the past 2.5 years of you being in this role, just right up the street from me, how many times have I told you, man, I am so glad I'm in my role. I do not want to touch your job with a stick. I want nothing to do with it.
About every time we talk.
Every time we talk, I'm like, dude, your job sounds hard.
All the time. He's like, Riley, how many times have I told you I don't want your job? I'm not envious of your job.
But it looks great on a resume.
I will say that is the one nice thing is I got a text from a buddy of mine in Mississippi a few days ago. He passed my resume along and asked me things are going. He goes, man, your resume looks really good. And I joke. I said, my resume looks a lot better than I do. That's for sure. Praise the Lord for that.
So wrapping up episode 1 here, what do you say to other pastors who are in this similar in-between spot, feeling unwanted where they are, or feeling like the time where they're at is coming to an end, but not sure where the next spot to go is?
Yeah, I would just say, one, stay quiet in terms of just with people around you. And, do everything you can to build others up around you, then tear them down. I made that mistake of trying to tear others down because I felt they were doing that to me. And so just when that, because what happens when that time comes for you to leave, you want to be able to leave well. And people to say, we're grateful for the way he left and what he left behind. So that, and then just lean into what the Lord is doing in your life. I think there were signs of things God was doing in my life early on that I just neglected because I was just really loved my role. And in fact, as this process came forward, one thing I told my wife was, like, it hit me that potentially, I'm still, figuring this out, my title and my job was becoming an idol in my life because I was so proud of who I was in that role. And so it's going, hey, you know what? Use this time to allow the Lord to tear you down and really get you on your knees and humble yourself and say, you know what, God, what are you trying to do in this? And it was in that moment when I really humbled myself and said, God, what are you trying to do? That really began to work in me and give me, remove some of the anxiety. It's still there. Trust me, it's still there. I check my Gmail every day of, like, has this church gotten back to me and what's going on here?
You're checking Gmail and church staffing and the denominational
and all the time.
The Gospel Coalition job board. And
yeah, but also prepare yourself for what's next. I told my wife a few weeks ago, I said,
here's what's really cool, is through this process, the Lord is preparing our hearts for a people and a people's hearts for us. And at some point in the future, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, who knows? I pray to God it's not 12 months. But it's hey, that marriage is going to happen, and we're going to look back and go, man, we are so grateful.
It's like, oh, it just makes sense.
For what God did through this season, even though it was hard, and we didn't want it. Trust me, we didn't want it. But sometimes the best things in life are not things that we wanted. It's things that we needed, that God knew. And I heard this quote in a sermon a few weeks ago at church. Said, I'm trying to not butcher it, but essentially it's like, hey, you know what? We would pray for what, I'm going to butcher it, but we would pray for what we needed if we knew what God was going to do. And I'm butchering the quote, but basically saying, hey, you know what? Like, God would give us what we prayed for if we knew what he was doing and we prayed for those things, like that kind of thing. So it's just look forward to the future, but also allow them, sit in the moment and allow God to work. And, and then also last thing is just lean into your network. Andrew and other guys, Tim and other guys in the Practically Pastoring podcast group is, Andrew's walked through this process with me through the whole time. And every job I've taken, he's walked me through this. But lean into them because they're going to tell you, hey, you know what, Riley, like, you're wrong. You should have done that. And you need people in your life that can tell you that. If my boss tells me I'm wrong, I'm like, I try to push back. When Andy tells me I'm wrong, I'm like, okay, he's probably right.
You want people in your life that are not impressed by you and don't need anything from you.
Correct.
So the people that you work with, they either need work out of you if they're above you, or they might want something from you if they're at the same level or a subordinate of yours. So those are probably not the people to be leaning into during seasons of transition. You need to have other people in your ministry network. Hey, a great place to look for that ministry network is the Practically Pastoring Facebook group. 1,200 plus pastors with the median age of about 39 right now. So,
which is wild.
Yeah.
Because the median age of pastor in America
is
like
about 8,000. Yeah.
That's
so
insane.
Lean in, find your people there. Last question, and then we'll wrap up episode 1 here is, how can you leave without bitterness when it wasn't your idea?
Yeah, that's a tough question. And for me, it's...
Ask you in 6 months?
Yeah, ask me in 6 months. No, it's, for me, is just believing the best in people. And also reminding yourself, and me remind myself, you know what, everyone I work with, even in the church, is a sinner. And we all have a flesh. And we're going to do things that in the moment may seem right, and God may be working in them and doing something behind the scenes that we don't know, and he is. And so it's reminding myself again is going, at the end of the day, the great orchestrator of all of this is the Lord. And there's nothing, our pastor keeps saying about an old preacher back in the day about things. Romans 8:28. He's like, if you just be a Romans 8:28 guy. And it's one thing to say that, but then to truly believe that and live that. I'm having to do that. But it's making, when I go in with that mindset of going, you know what, like, if I can just love these people well and be the better person, honestly, be the one who extends the handshake. Because, if I could sit in the corner and have no one interact with me and be miserable, or I could be the one who takes that step. You know what? I know that things are awkward, but I'm going to walk into the awkward, embrace the awkward, and I'm going to love you anyway. It changes everything.
I think we are so tempted to assume that somebody else is conniving and is out to get you, when truthfully, they're just trying to figure it out as much as we are. A pastor buddy of mine had lunch with a well-known older pastor just a couple weeks ago, and came back from that lunch saying he has it figured out about as much as I do. Like, we assume that because someone has that next level in their job title, or they're at that bigger church, that they must be a strategist and must have it all. Sometimes the Holy Spirit's going to put someone where God wants them, and that's it. And they don't have no one gets into pastoring because they want to manage people. And
I've told my senior pastor, I said, I don't envy him at all.
Yeah.
For the decision, because here's the deal. I know that he loves me. I know he loves my kids, and my son adores him, and so I know he cares. And he even told my wife a few weeks ago when they saw each other for the first time after all this kind of happened. He just gave her a hug and said, I hope you know that I love you. He goes, it may not seem like it right now, but just know that I love you. And I truly believe that. And so it's remind myself, you know what? These are good people, and
trying to steward God's resources and His
trying
church.
to do the best they can, and the way they understand they're doing it. And so going, you know what, like if I had to go back in every decision I ever made, I'd look back and go, there's some dumb decisions I've made. But going again, you know, hoping that 5 years from now, both of us look back, and all of us involved look back and go, you know what, like, man, it was hard, but look where we're at now. And my prayer is that the campus that I was at is thriving, and that wherever God takes me next is thriving, and we're all looking back going, man, God is so good, and we're so proud of all the things that He did.
Hey, tune in maybe next week, maybe next time, we don't know. But in a couple of days, we'll have another episode here of Get a Job with Andrew and Riley. Get a Job is presented by Practically Pastoring. It is recorded and edited by me, Andrew Larson, and it is produced by Andrew Larson and Riley Lester.